The Vera Time Show. The Vera Time Show. The Vera Time Show. The Vera Time Show. Let's talk about it. 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 On the Vera Time Show. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Why should I vote? No one takes note, is what we hear some people say, while lying, divisive, insensitive, misogynistic, manipulative, hate-filled, evil politicians go on their merry way. They show they don't care. Behaviors we should not continue to accept, actions too shameful to bear. The slaughters, the bombs. This is our reality. This is not fake. How much more will we choose to take? Why should I vote? It won't change a thing. Change is what your vote must bring. Why should we vote? People died for the right. They fought by day and night. Death would not have been the case had it been for the right of a different race. If our vote did not matter, if right was not right, why was there such a fight to prevent it? Why was there such heartache, misery, and pain? Who is to benefit? Who is to gain? Let's be clear. Your vote is exactly what they fear. We can change the trajectory of what is happening today, getting the attitudes and behaviors we don't need or want out of office and out of the way of justice, liberty, and freedom for all. Without your vote, we are all about to fall. Refusing to vote, you really have no say. Willing or not, accept come what may. The hate and lies will continue. Maligning our governmental systems and free press will have no end. Disenfranchisement and voter suppression will win. The attacks will persist, possibly escalate on our children, women, the old, sick, and many of our men. Why should you vote? Please take note. Your vote matters more than you know. It's the only way to show those in power we will not take their corruption and evil anymore. It is our way to speak truth to power. Speak truth to power. Speak truth to power. Now is the time. This is the hour.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Well, thank you. And yes, the most important factor you left off is the fact that we are cousins. So as well. So thank you. And I want to commend you for this wonderful platform. And I might add this award-winning platform. So thank you for the sacrifice that it requires to invest all the time and energy to really make a credible platform that informs our people. And so you to be commended for that. A lot of people can say what needs to be done, but very few will step up and do it. So thank you. Stay the course. Yeah, I know it's not easy, but it's needful. So thank you, cuz. Thank you, Vera. I'm on here today because I really want us to think about this recent Supreme Court ruling. Can you hear me, Vera? Okay, all right. The Supreme Court ruling. Uh, I'll tell you, as Vera mentioned, back in June, we all know uh, this Supreme Court, led by Justice Roberts, ruled that race can no longer be a consideration for college admissions. And that was really disturbing to me personally and to a lot of people. It was disappointing, actually, that they came to that conclusion. We were not surprised only because of what we had seen this court uh, doing in some of their prior rulings. Um, the fact that they, took some teeth out of the Voting Rights Act a few years ago, and now here it comes time for race-based admissions, and they essentially tried to strike down affirmative action as it relates to college admissions. Now, and we know that that's just a first step because they'll eventually begin to suggest that race cannot be considered in any area of life. And it's just so, I don't want to call it hypocritical, but it's just so interesting that the Judge Roberts would rule and say that there's no place in society for allowing race to be a consideration in college admissions or other aspects of life, when we know that it has always been consideration. It has always been. They've always allowed race to be the disqualifier for us. Oh, just you saw Judge Thomas. Yes, yes, Judge Thomas. Yeah, I was referring initially to the Chief Justice Roberts, but you're right. Judge Thomas, of all people, he even went so far as to say that that this that it's unfair for race to be considered, and that the black students who admitted would somehow feel stigmatized. He was admitted to Yale Law School, one of 12 black students, and he says that he felt stigmatized, and he even said that using race would allow them to admit students to some of these institutions where they weren't even qualified. And I'm thinking, now wait a minute, are you saying you weren't qualified to get Yale? I didn't understand that disclosure there. But the fact is, you cannot say that they would feel stigmatized and let that be your rationalization. Because I say no one, you don't stigmatize yourself. Only someone else can try to stigmatize you. And I don't worry about people trying to stigmatize me. And so to suggest that if I was admitted to an institution, that somehow or other I'm going to feel inferior, I don't know where that's coming from with him. That sounds like a personal issue because I don't feel inferior. And here's the thing: the affirmative action ruling. You say, well, it showed preference. Well, for 100 years, the preference was to say you figured out from 1865 when slavery ended till 1965, 100 years, we were categorically denied solely because of race. So now we start allowing race to be a consideration to try and remediate for some of that racism that existed for 100 years. And now for 50 years, we've tried affirmative action, 50 years, and now all of a sudden they're contending that somehow or other it's inappropriate to use race. It was appropriate to use it for 100 years. Now for 50 years, we've been trying to rectify and remediate that injustice, and now it's not. All of a sudden, now it's inappropriate, and I just really had a problem with that logic, and so, but to go even further, I talked about the fact that Judge Roberts said, well, race can still be considered on a case-by-case basis at universities. That's what he said. He said, and you can still mention race in your essay. You can talk about race and how perhaps your race has impacted you and how you overcame life's challenges, etc. And the school then will be able to glean from your essay what your race is. Now, I call that a distinction without a difference, because whether I indicate on my application that I'm a black man or I talk about it in my essay, the reviewer looking at that application now knows my race and will take my story into consideration and will still make a decision that they believe will benefit their university as they try to increase the diversity at the university, as they try to increase, and build out a student body that is representative. So therefore, from my perspective, to say you can't indicate on the form your race, but you can indicate in your essay, to me, that's a distinction without a difference. And so I take exception to that. Sis, go ahead, Vera. You going to say something? I thought you were trying to get in there.
I want to say something, and we can't talk at the same time because we get that spot. Right. So let me just say, in response to all this stuff, we are at a critical point.
Yes.
In our country. We've got, this particular law that came down, the affirmative action. People don't understand. They don't understand how critical everything is right now. Okay, we've got some things happening. We got a couple of I love you, Vera. I love you too, Rod. Thank you for listening. And Barb, thank you for bringing it to my attention that you could not hear me. So anyway, listen, we are at a critical point in our country, and they are doing everything in their power to malign us and to dismiss us and to, come on. And so I know you're doing things with diversity training and this affirmative action. Listen, people, we cannot afford to sit back and allow our society to treat us any kind of way and to do the things that they're doing to us. And it's not just us, it's people of color, period, across the board. Right. All this hatred and all this stuff. And we got someone that's running for president again. And I'm telling you, if the man gets in office, we might as well kiss our democracy goodbye. We might as well.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, why don't you go ahead? I'm going to shut my mic off and I'm going to let you continue to talk.
All right. Let me share one other thing. there was a group, a right wing group who's been pushing the Supreme Court to make these decisions. Who pushed it, and this last time he got some Asian students to be the ones to make the argument that somehow that they were being discriminated against because of the rate. They were being discriminated against because more whites and others got in school, even though they contend they should have been in school, higher grades, etc. Whether it's true or not, but that was their contention. But I said, how did they get standing to go before the Supreme Court? Now I know the right wing guy took them and held them up and said this is the group that's been damaged. And I said, but how did they even have standing? Because when you look at the statistics, and I did, I mean, it's not complicated. When you look at some of our major institutions, in particular, if you look at even the two schools that were named in the suit, Harvard and UNC. Harvard, currently 47% of Harvard's student population is white. 23% of their student population is Asian. And only 10% of their population is African American. So my contention is, how can the Asian population have been unfairly discriminated against if they are the second largest group at Harvard? And
can you give those statistics again, please?
Sure. Harvard, 47% of Harvard's student body is white. 23% of their student body is Asian, and 10% is black. So how can an Asian group say they've been discriminated against at Harvard if they're the second largest group at Harvard? And how can you contend that affirmative action has somehow or another altered the landscape of these universities when after 50 years of affirmative action, we're still only at 10% at Harvard? So if what we were doing was so egregious, it should have been more than 10% by now. So that tells me I don't even understand where the issue is. And I give you some other statistics. USC Chapel Hill, the other school, 70% of their student body is white, 13% is Asian, and 11% is black. So it's a little more parity there between the Asians and black. But for most of the major universities, it's just single digits among the blacks. I'll give you a quick rundown. Duke, and I'll just give you the categories. Duke University, 41 white, 14 Asian, 7% black. Columbia University, 29% white, 13% Asian, 5% black. Princeton, 36% white, 18% Asian. Remember, they're always the second largest group, 6% black, single digit. Cornell, 32% white, 17% Asian, 6% black. Brown, 38% white, 16% Asian, 7% black. Dartmouth, 48% white, 13% Asian, 5% black. Yale, 39% white, 16% Asian, 7% black. My alma mater, the University of Virginia, 57% white, 13% Asian, 6% black. When I went to university in 1976, the university was 3.5% black. 50 years later, it's at 6%. Where is the damage that affirmative action? Where is this flipping totally the makeup of this college classes when you still, after 50 years, a school's only at 6%? And so I just don't understand the logic of somehow or another saying this use of race to include race as one of the determinants, one of the variables that you use, somehow or another is going to unfairly impact someone else. And I'm thinking, but the evidence here doesn't show that. After 50 years of affirmative action at all of these major predominantly white institutions, we're still single digits. So where has the damage been done? So I just don't understand it. Would they rather that after 50 years it's only 1% at all of these schools? Would they be okay then? I mean, it's just shameful. The mighty big Penn State here in Pennsylvania. I live in Pennsylvania. It's 63% white, but in their case, only 7% Asian and 6% black. Still higher than blacks, but closer in parity. And University of Pittsburgh, Pitt, 63% white, 11% black. I mean, 11% Asian and 5% black. So again, we just see always it's double digit Asian, single digit black, and of course the majority is white. So I'm still hard pressed to understand how they were able to have standing to go before the Supreme Court and say that Asians have been maligned because of affirmative action when the student body population clearly points out otherwise.
Let me just say what we're failing to understand and realize, and I'm muting you so that we don't get this feedback. What we're failing to see as a result of this, the implications in medicine, the implications in science, the implications even in leadership. Because if minorities are not being educated in these areas, it's going to impact on how we are treated in the medical profession, in hospitals and doctors' offices. We already have disparity, even with more African Americans in the medical field. But now, as a result of this, it's going to be even less. Okay, let me give it to you. All right.
Absolutely, that potential exists for it to be even fewer. But again, I still say the schools who are committed to diversity, certainly like my alma mater and others, have said they're still committed to developing a diverse student body. We'll see, but that's what they say. And the court gave them the wiggle room. Robert said you can still use race in an essay. That's why I say all of this, it's almost like it's I think it's like the Trojan horse. So you can still use race to as long as they talk about it in an essay. So it may or may not affect the student makeup because I'll still know if the student application I'm looking at is a black kid or an Asian kid or a Latino kid. So I'll still be able to tell based on the essay. So if that's the case, I think it's a Trojan horse because what they really want to do is establish some kind of precedent here so that they can really push affirmative action, race-based consideration into the workplace and say,
absolutely. I muted you. Absolutely. I mean, come on. I mean, scripture says, those who have eyes, let them see. Those who have ears, let them hear. We need to see what is happening in our country. We need to understand that if we sit back and we don't vote and we allow our system to do what it's doing, we've already, and oh my God, there was an exercise that I do in diversity, and we're going to be talking about your diversity training. It's called privilege and non-privilege, and it's where we ask a series of questions, and depending on those questions, you either move forward or you move back. By the end of those series of questions, white men are in the front, white women are next, black women are next. Well, Asian and black women are in paired together. And then black men are all the way at the back, and it's because, and it's not going to change if we don't vote. It's not going to change if we don't do something about this. It's not going to change. And we need to talk about what's happening in the workplace. And I know you have a white partner that you work with where diversity is concerned, which is absolutely necessary. A black person cannot go into any company and do diversity by themselves. A white person cannot go into any company and do diversity by themselves. It's got to be that joint effort. It's got to be that joint effort. I'm going to take myself off the mic. I'm going to bring you back and let you go ahead and finish.
It's been done all the time, either an all white trainer or all black trainer, and it happens all the time. And so I wouldn't suggest that it can't, but if you're going to model what you're training, if you're talking about diversity and inclusion, and then you need to model it. And I think by having mixed race presenters models the inclusion that you're espousing in your training, and that's what we've managed to do. And so we've managed to train over 6,000 people in our concept, where we've talked to them about this issue, because at the end of the day, we've helped people understand that diversity simply means that everybody is individual and different. And that's all it really means. Everybody is individual, and it's a fact. It's an irrefutable fact. We're all individual and different. You need only look at the beautiful Vera and the aging Joseph here to know that we're all individual and different. And so that's what diversity is all about. And so we try to model that by going in there together.
Right. And let me say, I think I'm older than you, bro. I think I am. But anyway.
Yeah, that's right. So yes, so the diversity training is important, but let me just segue back quick. We'll come back to that. But listen, this notion of voting, representation matters. It really does matter. And that's what we have to get people to understand. And I know we often like to take shots at the young people and say that they're not engaged. And a lot of them aren't. They're still trying to understand, why should they vote? Why does it matter? It doesn't matter to me. And telling them about all the people that died for this, that doesn't resonate with them. It really doesn't. So we've got to figure out another way. But it's not just the young people, though. There are people, middle-aged and above who sit out these elections. And we've got to appreciate that elections matter. Elections have consequences. And that's how you get a Supreme Court. This is not the first time a challenge to affirmative action was mounted and taken before the Supreme Court. But we had different Supreme Court justices. Sandra Day O'Connor was on at that time, and some others. So we've had different faces. And so when they come off and you don't vote, and you put in a president and a Congress who has a different agenda, then they have the opportunity to pack the courts from top to bottom, from Supreme Court down to all the appellate courts. And you have an opportunity to see the system stacked against you only because you failed to come out and vote for candidates who would represent your interests. And so elections have consequences, and we have got to recognize that more and more. And it's not just that Black people aren't voting, people aren't voting, period. A lot of people sit out the elections, and I'm suggesting that we've got to be more and more diligent. I'm wearing my shirt here today. I'm a member of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and we have a slogan. We say a voteless people is a hopeless people. And so vote. And so we really have got to encourage people to register to vote and then get out to the polls, because elections have consequences, and we've seen it. And now we've got these extremists in office, and now they're even floating the notion of Donald Trump being appointed as the speaker, as the speaker of the House of Representatives. I mean, there's nothing in the law that precludes them appointing him. He doesn't even have to be, a member of the House already. He can just be. They can reach out if they had the majority, if they had enough votes, and appoint him as the Speaker of the House. Incredible.
It would not surprise me not one bit if that was the plan. That would not surprise me not one bit if that was the plan, why they got McCarthy out. That would not surprise. And we got to pause for the cause. I have a couple commercials I need to run. So let me go ahead and do that right quick.
Mama Knows creates high quality products that are available to be used on multiple textures of hair. Her goal is to bridge the gap to stop people from having to use multiple products because of families with multiple hair types. Her products are currently being used on men women, children of all ethnicities. Mama Knows products are available at www.mamaknowsproducts.com. That's www.mamaknowsproducts.com. You can also find her on Instagram at Mama Knows Products, because you know, Mama knows what you need.
Mama knows what you need. I'm telling you, these products are awesome. They are wonderful. They smell good. Shampoos, conditioners, hair serums, all kinds of products. And they're for all ethnicities. So it doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't even matter if you're male or female, boy or girl. These products are awesome. Go to mamaknowsproducts.com. Why? Because Mama knows what you need. Yes. All right. I got another commercial to do. And then. Okay.
For real, take your business, any business, to the next level by joining us at the Global Awaken Trinity Summit. 4 days of opportunities and inside info you don't want to miss, as over 35 celebrity speakers will be live in person to teach you exactly how to make your business take off, grow, and thrive. From marketing tool secrets to the best ways to build relationships, partnerships, and make true connections. Founder Kessa Gooden is putting on this once-in-a-lifetime event, the Global Awaken Trinity Summit VIP Gala and Yacht Mastermind, February 29th through March 3rd, 2024 in Miami, Florida. Registration starts at 9 sharp each day. Bring your business partner, your team, your friends, anyone and everyone who wants real success. For tickets, call 404-992-3971. Tickets will not last, so call now. 404-992-3971. Or visit us online at globalawakenedevents.com, and we will see you there.
Yes, Global Awakening Events.org. I'm telling you, this is going to be an awesome event for, This is going to be an awesome event. I wasn't able to get the information up quick enough, but go to globalawakeningevents.org. And they're still looking for speakers. And so next week I will be pushing that particular promo. I wasn't able to get everything in today. So just check it out. And again, it's globalawakeningevents.org. globalawakeningevents.org. And also, please, I want you to share, like, comment, and subscribe to the Vera Thomas Show. I need your support and your encouragement. So please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the Vera Thomas Show. And if you can support us, we would really appreciate it, because we try to do our best in getting all kinds of services and products to you and information to you. So you can go to Cash App Instill Great or Venmo at VT1117. Your support is greatly needed and appreciated. So thank you for that. And I do want to also make you aware, since I'm running my mouth here, I want to make you aware of a workshop that's coming up on October 14th and 15th. It is an anti-bullying workshop for parents and their children. When you consider that parents also may experience or may have experienced being bullied in the workplace or even in relationships, and then your children being bullied at home and at school. So this workshop is designed for parents and children, 8-year-olds to 13-year-olds. You can register by going to the QR code that's up on the screen, or you can go to the, that's not the right one. You can go to the Vera Thomas, bit.ly/Vera Thomas, and the link is the very first one on that page. So please register and share this with other people. Parents that you know whose kids may have experienced being bullied. Parents that you know that may have been bullied themselves. And let's look at using my power. How do I use my power? How do I take my power back? So check it out. And it's on October 14th and 15th from 2 to 4 p.m. And there's going to be a lot of role play, scenarios, experts going to be talking to you. You really want to check this out. So again, using my power, October 14th and 15th. And you can go to the QR code to register right now, as a matter of fact. Okay, now let me bring my cousin back. And let me put myself on mute so that you can keep talking.
The listeners typically write in with any comments or questions, but if there are any, I'm certainly happy to take them. But about the last topic we were discussing, but let me pivot if I can to talk a little bit about leadership as well, if that's okay with you. Thank you. This book was written back in 2008, and it's been well received, and it's about leadership. And it draws some life lessons from the biblical character, John the Baptist. He is the wild man, not Vera's cousin. And so it's 7 leadership imperatives from a wild man. And what I did, I like to say that all of us, see life through a certain lens based on our own personal experiences. And having been a senior leader throughout most of my career, I tend to look for the leadership aspects anytime I'm doing anything, including reading the Bible. And as the more I read about John the Baptist, the more I began to formulate, I began to see some characteristics in this common man that I thought were could be replicated by others. And I thought, this is a leadership model here, because here's a guy who didn't have a lot of means, didn't dress too well, camel's hair, crazy diet, wild locusts and honey. And yet he was able to turn the whole world right side up, and he only had one message, and that was repent. And so I said, now this guy, this simple guy who was so singularly focused on his message, was and understanding his purpose, was able to impact history as we know it in a significant way. So I said, well, let's see how these play out in society. So my book actually gleans from not just the Bible, but it looks at everyday events, everyday people in our society, and how they have, in their own ways, emulated the very principles that I found in John the Baptist's life. And so I encourage everyone to dare to lead wildly and lead others to success and excellence. So the book is available through the publisher, Judson Press, Judson, www.judsonpress. They are the publisher since the early 1800s. They've been the publisher for the American Baptist churches worldwide, and so they were able to publish this book on my behalf, and I appreciated that they asked me to actually write the book and agreed to publish it. It's also available through all the other platforms out there as well, the Amazons, etc. But if you want to get a read and get a bead on a person who represents you and I, the everyday common person, I recommend you take a look at this book. And so if there's any questions you want to talk about in the leadership in particular, that's a topic near and dear to me. I'm president of the Martin Luther King Leadership Development Institute, and we are endeavoring to train people in the tenets of Dr. King. Dr. King, it's my objective is to not only train people in his tenets and teach people how to understand public policy and how to use it to bring about the kind of change that's really necessary, but also to use some of his principles and concepts and apply them to everyday life. And often the question comes up, well, would that nonviolent stuff that Dr. King talk about work today? And how come marches don't seem to have the same effect today? And I contend that they can have the same effect if you do them the way Dr. King did them. Dr. King had a basic formula and concept, and it was simply this: in a nonviolent protest, it was just 4 basic steps. Number one, you had to document and identify the oppressor or the offense, or verify that some that some discriminatory act had occurred, and who was the perpetrator, or what is the perpetrator. It might be a system, not an individual, but a system. What is it that and so once you've identified that, then you have to say, okay, now that we've identified it, let's sit down and negotiate and make our grievances known. Now that we know what the offense is, and who we have to talk to, because you can draw a crowd and talk loud and get nothing done. But who are you talking to? So you've got to. It's more than talking loud and drawing a crowd. So you find out. Okay, I know the issue. I know it exists. I've documented that. Now let me go and negotiate with that oppressor and let them know and make my grievances known. Now, if my oppressor doesn't want to hear what I have to say, then we go to step 3. This is Dr. King's process. You go to step 3, and that's the purification process, where you say, you know what? We're going to prepare ourselves for this nonviolent confrontation. And so they would train people how to not retaliate if they were spit on, talked at, cursed, and etc. There was a process. Again, it wasn't just talking loud and drawing a crowd. It was strategic. And so then they would train people in terms of what they're about to encounter. And then the 4th step was the actual direct action, where you go down. Now we're going to do our direct action. We're going to do our protest. We're going to do our boycott. We're going to do our sit-in. And what is the purpose of all of that? The purpose of that step 4 is simply, primarily, to drive that oppressor that you already identified back to step 2, the negotiation table. Now that I've got your attention, now that you see we're serious, now let's negotiate and resolve this thing. That's the process that Dr. King employed in during the civil rights movement. But all too often today, we jump right to step 4. Let's have a march. And we've done none of the other steps that lead up to that to make the march. So you shoot your load and lose the effectiveness of the march because you haven't done the legwork leading up to it. So that's why I also try to help people understand, if you're going to embrace Dr. King's principles, you've got to do it the way he did it. And I think if we would do that, we see a lot more results.
That is awesome. And I hate we can't have this back and forth dialogue for the feedback, but I do want to acknowledge, I just saw one of my friends and coaches here, Robin. Hi, Robin. Let me put her up here. Thank you for watching, Robin. Robin Tramble. She is an awesome coach, and she'll probably be a guest on my show at some point. But anyway, thank you for watching. Appreciate it very much so. Now, in terms of the things that you're talking about, in terms of Dr. Martin Luther King's process and steps, and we need to take heed to those. And it was nonviolent. That crap that happened on June 6th was totally barbaric, totally crazy, totally of ill effect. That's not how you get things done. We need to be strategic in our methods and in our process, just as Dr. Martin Luther King was. We need to be strategic. And we just laid out the steps. He talked about them. And so I'm going to bring you back, because I hate not having that back and forth. I hate that, but I'd rather do this than have all that feedback going on. So I'm going to shut down my mic and give you the mic back.
Yes, Dr. King, I think we have to talk about it, because Dr. King he's actually been hijacked, particularly by the right wing. They've hijacked Dr. King. They've boiled his whole message down to one sentence in one speech. And everything the right wing knows about Dr. King is I live for the day when my four little children are judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And that's all they hang out. Dr. King would not be for affirmative action because he wanted his kids to be judged by the content of their character. And that's all they know or wanted to hear about Dr. King. That's all they know from that speech. I have a dream. They heard none of the stuff about we've come here today because of insufficient funds. We've come here because America has written us a check that has come back marked insufficient funds. They didn't hear any of that. They didn't hear any of his, attack about the Poor People's Campaign. All they heard was Dr. King wouldn't be for affirmative action because he just wants his kids to be judged by the color of the content of their character. And they hijacked the man. And so we're endeavoring to make sure that the true Dr. King is understood. And so we have something here in Pennsylvania called the Pennsylvania Cable Network, which is similar to C-SPAN, but it's here. It would be a P-SPAN, I guess. But we have but the Pennsylvania Cable Network broadcasts across Pennsylvania different programs, and I had the opportunity to give a presentation about Dr. King called MLK Jr., the Man, the Myth, and the Martyr. And it was well received, and I recorded that, gave that presentation probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and they've been replaying it every year on MLK Day. They rebroadcast it statewide every year because I've really tried to help people understand Dr. King, the man, the person, because we want to mythologize him, and put him on a pedestal that even he didn't aspire to, and don't see the human element. Don't see that despite his own human frailties, he was able to accomplish much. Despite his own insecurities, he was able to accomplish much. And so a lot of times we don't talk about that. And I think it's important that we understand we don't have to wait for the next Dr. King because he was just like us. We are the next Dr. King. He was reluctant as well to jump into the fray, but there were others who insisted that he take the lead. I say in my book that leaders don't always leap forward. Oftentimes they're pushed forward. And that's what happened with Dr. King as well. And so I think that it's important that we get the message out about the real Dr. King so that we don't so mythologize him that we think that I'm incapable of doing anything to move the needle because I don't have his eloquence. I don't have his whatever. No, he would tell you that he's just a man, and he relies on you. Ella Baker, a woman out, and I'm going to turn it to you, sister. Hold that point. Ella Baker, who was one of the chief strategists in the civil rights movement. She used to say, because she used to fight all the time with the SCLC because it was a male-dominated preacher organization, and she would say to them, we have to educate the people. And her statement, one of her famous statements was, she said, "Strong people don't need a strong leader," And so that's what we have to help us all to understand. We all have something to do that we can do. Go ahead, Sister Vera.
Yes. Preach. Absolutely. What? And first, I want to acknowledge Robin again. She says, "Love you and appreciate what you do." Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you and what you've done for me in the past. I really do. Thank you. What we all need to understand is each of us have got to decide what it is we can do to make a difference, to make an impact. We don't need to wait until there's a leader. Each of us need to take that mantle. Each of us need to do our part because we cannot, I'm telling you people, we cannot afford to just sit back, rest on our laurels, and expect change to come. We need to be the change we want to see. And let me say that again. We need to be the change we want to see. Inch by inch, it's a cinch. We all have got to do our part. If we don't, we're not going to have a democracy. Period. We're not going to have a democracy. We each need to decide what it is we can do to make a difference. And it's not about race, it's about survival. It's about this country. And each of us, black, white, Asian, green, yellow, all of us, we've all got to do our part. I get really passionate about this because we're in a critical state right now. We've lost our spirituality. We've lost our dignity and respect for each other. We've lost the tentacles of what Christ said, love thy neighbor as thyself. So many times we don't even love ourselves. We don't even love ourselves. Why do I say that? Because we don't participate in self-care. We don't think about how what we do impacts on us individually and collectively. You can't love other people if you don't love yourself. So we got to start with that. And that's not about being selfish. It's about loving yourself so that you can love other people and they can love you as well. All right. I'm going to give the floor back to my cousin because I could go on and on about this. We have got to wake up and do what we need to do. Each of us. We can't rely on a leader because at this point, we all have got to be a leader. We've all got to be a leader. And whatever it is that we do, perfect it. Know what your purpose is and live in it, walk in it, and work in it. All right, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to give it back to my cousin.
Know your purpose and walk in it, because that's what the book talks about. Even the first imperative is to be sure of your purpose. And John the Baptist was sure; he knew why he was called. And then you've got to be focused. You can't waver. You can't allow people to take you off your script. People will always try to give you something else to do, but you've got to know what your calling and purpose is. And then you've got to be humble as well. That's the third imperative, is to be humble. Fourth imperative is to be discerning. You've got to be able to sense and observe, to watch what's happening around us, and be able to, when you see the winds shifting, you've got to be able to not only see it, but then take action. And that's what John the Baptist was able to do. And so many other leaders. I talk about Lee Iacocca and others, when he introduced the minivan to the world, we've got to be complementary. That's the fifth imperative. We've got to learn to work together and be collaborative instead of competitive. And then number six, you've got to be uncompromising. That means you're willing to draw a line in the sand and say, these are my values, and I don't cross this line. This is where I stand. I'm going to be uncompromising. You can even threaten my life. I'm going to put principle over personal peril. Because I feel that strongly about it. And Dr. King was certainly one of those people who was principled enough to be uncompromising. He ran into a lot of opposition in his latter part of his ministry. Even his compadres thought that he was jeopardizing the movement by coming out against the Vietnam War, because they felt that Johnson had been supportive of them with the Voting Rights Act and the 64 Civil Rights Act, and they thought that Martin was now betraying Johnson. And Johnson, of course, felt the same way. And they said, man, we're making headway. And Martin's position ultimately was, hey, listen, I can't look the other way at what I think is an immoral war just because he did the right thing with the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. He doesn't get a pass on this now, and so that was Dr. King. And then the seventh imperative is to be encouraged. And that's saying that, knowing that no matter what, you may or may not see the outcome. What did Dr. King say on that fateful night? I may not get there with you, but we as a people are going to get there. I've been to the promise. I've looked out over. That's when you talk about being encouraged. I'm being encouraged because I know that I'm living and operating in my purpose. I'm focused. And I'm doing it not for my own self, but out of humility. And if I'm moving the ball down the field with that perception, that mentality, whether I see the end result or not, and that's why a school teacher can sometime 20 years later, she may or may not see what became of her students, but every now and then, a student will come back and say, Miss Thomas, if it hadn't been for you, you know. And so a teacher has to be encouraged, knowing that you are doing what you've been called to do, and whether you are blessed to see the results of it or not is irrelevant. Sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't. Dr. King never saw it, you know. But be encouraged, you know, that once you're clear that you're working in your purpose, then you be encouraged and leave the results to God at that point, you know. And so that's what I say to people when it comes to this topic of leadership. And so I could talk about this topic forever, and perhaps we'll come back with your permission some other time. But please consider purchasing the book. I think you'll find it useful to you. It has a lot of application. So I know you probably want to say something, because I'm gonna shut up, because your hour is almost over and I need to be quiet so you can do what you do. But I want to thank you for having me on the program tonight.
I want to thank you for being here. You preached tonight and had me. I was almost in tears, feeling your passion. I mean, you got to have a purpose. You got to know your purpose. He said he knew the plans he had for you before you were even born. You have a purpose. So walk in your purpose, and then be focused. Be focused. And then be humble. It's not about you. It's about what God has for you to do. It's not, so many times we get all huffy and puffy about who we are. I'm this and I'm that. No. Be yourself. Be humble. It's not about you. It's about your purpose and what you were born to do. Focus, humble, and discerning. Be able to pick up. Surround yourself around the people that you want to be like. You know, discern the evil that you see and do something about it. Do something about it. Don't just sit back and say, oh, that's a shame. No, take action. And that's the same with bullies. You know, bullies are bullies because we allow them to be so. We allow them to be so. So take your power back. And learn how to use your power. That's what this workshop is going to be about on October 14th and 15th. People do not, Eleanor Roosevelt said, no one can make us feel any kind of way without our permission. We need to understand that. And once we understand that, then we can take our power back and use our power and not allow bullies to impact us to the extent that they are doing here in this country right now. And we have ran out of time. Okay, we've ran out of time. We could go on. And yes, Joseph, I am going to have you come back. But in the meantime, everybody, listen, have a great weekend. We will see you on Tuesday. Thank you. I personally feel this was a great show because you gave such great information, and I felt your purpose and your passion. And I know that what you're doing is what God wants you to do. And I just thank you for being here and being my cousin. I appreciate that too. All right. Well, listen, God bless you all. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on Tuesday.
The Vera and Thomas Show. 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 Let's talk about it. 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 On the Vera and Thomas Show. Let's talk